Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. It started like any other Friday evening. James Carter, had come home from work, exhausted but expecting the comfort of routine. My wife, Olivia, had left earlier that day for her cousin's wedding in Brighton. Normally, her trips were a minor inconvenience. She'd pack her bags, check in with me briefly, and I'd keep to my own schedule until she returned. But this time felt different. There had been subtle signs over the past few months. Text messages arriving late at night, laughter that sounded forced, fleeting glances at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I brushed them off. Weddings, I thought. People dress up, drink too much, get caught up in celebration. Nothing more. Yet, deep down, a small knot of unease had begun to tighten in my stomach. I tried to push it away as I settled into the living room, flicking through the TV channels with half-hearted attention. Around midnight, a text lit my phone, a picture of Olivia with her cousin, dressed in an elegant emerald gown, a glass of champagne in her hand, smiling. Too perfectly. The caption read, "Best night ever. Wish you were here," winking-faced. That winking emoji was enough to make my heart sink. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was harmless fun. But the doubts didn't stop there. The next day, I received another picture, this time Olivia in a tight hug with a man I didn't recognize, laughing in a way that felt intimate. My hand trembled as I stared at the screen. Something had shifted in her absence, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the center of her life anymore. By the time she returned, my unease had transformed into a dull, simmering anger. I greeted her at the door with a smile, one I forced for appearances, but she barely looked at me. The excitement from the wedding lingered in her eyes, a glow that wasn't meant for me. "Hey, James," she said, her voice light but distant. "The wedding was amazing." She tossed her bags onto the sofa, then collapsed beside me, still scrolling through her phone. I tried to engage her, asked about the ceremony, her cousins, even the music. But her attention was fractured. She gave monosyllabic responses, her laughter hollow. My stomach twisted with a combination of frustration and disbelief. Had I really been so blind for so long? The woman I had married, the person I had trusted with everything, was already distant, almost unrecognizable. That night, I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling. I replayed the pictures in my mind, each one a punch to my gut. I thought about the small signs I had ignored, the late nights at work, the sudden enthusiasm for social events, the way she had started dressing differently at home, brushing past me as if our space wasn't shared. A pattern had emerged, one I had refused to acknowledge. And now, confronted with it in stark reality, I felt an unfamiliar clarity. The person I married wasn't fully present anymore. The following morning, I attempted a conversation, carefully choosing my words. "Olivia," I started softly, "can we talk about last night?" She glanced up, eyes meeting mine for only a fraction of a second before returning to her phone. "Talk about what?" she said, her tone sharp, almost dismissive. The words stung, the casual dismissal louder than any argument could have been. I tried again, explaining how disconnected I felt, how her laughter and joy at the wedding had made me feel like a spectator in my own marriage. She listened for a moment, a faint frown crossing her forehead, then shrugged. "James, don't overthink it. It was just a wedding. People enjoy themselves." That was it. No apology, no reassurance, no acknowledgement of my feelings. Just a shrug. Something inside me broke that day. Not violently, not with anger, but with a cold, undeniable certainty. This was not a temporary lapse. This was a pattern. This was a distance that had been growing quietly, persistently, for months. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had been living alongside someone who had slowly drifted away, and the moment she returned from a celebration with the world outside, I saw it clearly. I was no longer priority. I spent the day in a daze, going through motions, answering emails, fixing breakfast, pretending everything was normal. But every glance at her reminded me of the gap that opened between us, a chasm that no amount of conversation could bridge. By evening, I had made a decision. Not a rash one, not born of jealousy or revenge, but a rational, painful choice. I pulled out the papers I had been avoiding for months, the documents my lawyer had prepared quietly while I wrestled with denial and hope. Divorce. The word felt heavy in my hand, heavy in my chest, yet liberating. It wasn't just about her actions. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, my sense of being valued. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the wedding pictures on her phone, my hand hovering over the pen, ready to sign the first official step toward freedom. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. I felt clarity, a harsh, piercing clarity that cut through months of confusion. And in that clarity, I realized something that both terrified and freed me. The life I had imagined with her was over, and it had been over long before she even returned from Brighton. As I signed the first sheet, the silence of our home enveloped me, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't storming out. I was calm. I was resolved. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that this was only the beginning. The coming days would be painful, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had taken control. The next morning, Olivia seemed oblivious to the weight of the night before. She moved around the kitchen, humming softly, pouring coffee with a casual cheerfulness that now felt alien to me. I watched her for a moment, measuring my response, knowing that any hint of anger or confrontation would be wasted energy. Instead, I spoke calmly, almost mechanically. "Olivia, I filed the papers yesterday." Her eyes widened briefly, a flicker of surprise, then a flash of something else, something I hadn't seen before. Regret? Shock? Denial? She looked down, fumbling with the coffee mug, then muttered, "I didn't expect you to do it." I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "I've thought about this for months. It's not about a wedding or a momentary excitement. It's about the way we've drifted, the way you've distanced yourself. I've waited, I've tried, and I've realized I can't force something that's already gone." Her hands trembled slightly. I hadn't expected her to react so subtly. She was usually quick to defend herself, to push back, but now she seemed almost fragile. For a moment, the woman I had loved, the one who had once been magnetic and alive, flickered in front of me. Then reality struck. She was the same person who had ignored my feelings, who had left me emotionally abandoned. She sat down at the table, fingers gripping the edge tightly. "James, I didn't realize. I thought maybe we could—" Her words stumbled, fractured, unable to form the sentences that might have once convinced me to stay. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. It's too late for that. The distance has grown too wide. I can't keep trying to convince someone to love me when it's clear they've already stopped. For a long silence, we just sat there. I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for the years lost in trying to hold something together that was beyond repair, and relief because finally the ambiguity, the emotional limbo, had ended. The clarity was harsh, but it was freeing. Over the next few days, I began the practicalities. Packing, separating belongings, coordinating with the lawyer. Olivia's demeanor shifted as she saw the tangible consequences of her detachment. The initial casualness faded, replaced with nervous energy and thinly veiled frustration. She had always thrived on control, on the comfort of knowing I would absorb the brunt of responsibility. Yet now, faced with her own powerlessness, she seemed smaller somehow, diminished. It was during one of these tense mornings, as she tried to retrieve documents from the shared office, that I noticed the first real sign of regret. She hesitated at the door, glanced at me, and for the first time, the casual arrogance that had defined her for months was gone. She muttered something about wanting to fix things, about not meaning to hurt me. Her words were soft, almost whispered, but by then it was too late. I listened, my expression neutral. Inside, I felt the surge of vindication. Not cruelly, but as a quiet acknowledgement that I had chosen myself first. All the nights I had stayed awake, questioning my worth, the constant anxiety about whether I was enough, whether she still cared, those days had ended. Now, she was the one questioning, uncertain, grasping for the emotional connection she had ignored for so long. One evening, I met with my closest friend, Ethan, at his flat. He listened as I recounted everything. The wedding, the pictures, the growing distance, and finally, the filing the papers. He nodded, understanding, his expression serious. James, you did what you had to do. You've been holding this together for years, trying to make it work. But someone has to value themselves first. That's you now. His words resonated, confirming what I had already known. It wasn't about winning or revenge or proving a point. It was about self-respect, about refusing to remain in a life that no longer nurtured or honored me. When Olivia finally confronted me directly, days later, she was trembling, frustration, and regret warring on her face. James, I see now what I've done. I didn't realize. Her voice cracked, the confidence she had carried for years now replaced by vulnerability. I listened quietly, allowing her to speak, but the power dynamics had shifted irreversibly. She could apologize, explain, beg for reconciliation, but I had already reclaimed the life I had allowed her to erode. The emotional reversal was complete. The one who had abandoned now faced consequences, and the one who had suffered had emerged stronger. Weeks later, the divorce was finalized. The house felt lighter, the air cleaner, the silence no longer oppressive but liberating. I discovered something profound. When love fades, it isn't always about anger or betrayal. Sometimes, it's about recognizing the moment when staying is a slow erosion of one's own sense of self. By leaving, I hadn't just ended a marriage. I had regained the clarity, dignity, and peace that had been buried beneath years of neglect. In the aftermath, I realized the truth that no wedding, no fleeting moment could erase. Happiness isn't granted by others. It's claimed by those who refuse to settle for less than they deserve. Olivia had walked away, but in doing so, she had shown me precisely what I needed to see. And in that revelation, I found my freedom.